As a hardcore recommendation junkie, if you ask me what the hardest thing to sell people on is, I would not hesitate for a second. It's JoJo. And their reasons for turning me down are always the same. They just cannot get past the art style. But if you ask me which recommendation I had sold the most successfully, I would still answer. It's JoJo. Because if they don't mind the art style, they usually end up as total JoJo diehards. Honestly, the art style is a huge part of the whole thing. When people say JoJo style, they mean crazy character designs, outfits, and colors.
But if you've actually watched JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, you know the art is just the wrapper. What really hooks you is the story. Because it's really that good. Lots of stories are good, but why does JoJo hit different? Let's get into it. JoJo's appeal really comes down to its storytelling style. And the very beginning of the part 4, Diamond is Unbreakable, is one of the best examples of it. If you showed this clip to someone who knows nothing about JoJo and asked what kind of show it is, they would probably think it's a horror series. To be clear, this is not how this part manga starts. The manga opens with Koichi meeting Jotaro and Josuke, but the anime's original opening works so well, and it's super JoJo, because that horror movie atmosphere is part of the series' signature. I am not just making this up. JoJo's creator, Adachi Hiroshiko, talks about this in his book manga, In Theory and Practice. What does a horror movie do to you? It makes you feel unseen danger, rising tension, and anxiety for the main character. That is the audience mindset the author is aiming for. The hardest part of manga is creating a reason to flip to the next page. That is curiosity about what comes next. Araki relies on this constantly in JoJo, especially when you do not know who the enemy stand user is yet. Usually, it begins with something weird around the protagonist, like text suddenly appearing on a plane in midair. It is like a horror movie where a room is empty, but the doors and windows start moving by themselves. Then the protagonist starts digging for an answer. The audience tightens up with them. And when the protagonist finally steps all the way into the stand's trap, that is when the enemy shows up, face to face, and lays out what the power is. This cause-after-effect style of storytelling might not sound that special when I describe it like this, but in practice, it pulls you in completely. It also establishes a core rule in JoJo stick battles. Information about a stand is the deadliest kind of information in it, and it must never be revealed. If you have watched other anime with superpowers, you can probably picture this scene right away.
My power is fire. Prepare to die. How did you know my weakness is water?
JoJo feels like horror not just in its vibe, but in its gore and its weird, unsettling moments too. Compared to a lot of other fight-heavy shows, there can be blood and guts everywhere, but as a viewer you barely feel it. But JoJo is different. Even something like getting older does not sound that bad, right? But in JoJo, Araki makes it feel brutal. He shows the skin peeling off, and he shows the teeth falling out, so you cannot help but feel uncomfortable. Using details to make it feel real is JoJo's second major storytelling style. JoJo fans are probably familiar with this. In JoJo Part 4, Shibero Han lays out a rule for writing. Even with a fantasy concept like stands, you can make it feel real. You do it with everyday details. JoJo has tons of running gags and memorable lines. They are not polished, quote-worthy sayings. Some are even absurd, but that is why they feel real. Araki does not like to over-design his dialogue. He puts himself into the scene. He writes what he would naturally say. So those strange sounding lines are not random. They are simply his own speaking style. If JoJo has started to interest you, but you are not sure where to begin, do not worry. Use the recommendations below and pick the one that fits you best. If you are into the traditional train, grow stronger, and beat the bad guy kind of story, I recommend part 1 and part 2. If you prefer an adventure where the main cast travels from place to place and runs into all kinds of enemies and danger, I recommend part 3. If you are in the mood for something lighter and more slice of life, I recommend part 4. If you are into mafia vibes and intense chase battles, I recommend part 5, Golden Wind. If you want a prison story led by a tough, fearless heroine, I recommend part 6. If you like this video, I recommend giving it a like.